and welcome to ReggieState.com. Part 2 of our Star Wars podcast special. We've been talking Star Wars. Our original recording went so long that we kind of split this up into 2. Why keep our small audience waiting? And let's pick back up where we left off.
Sounds good.
And go back to Part 2. Here's the rest of our Star Wars podcast special. We moved from Return of the Jedi, unfortunately, and we have to go to the prequels. Everyone probably loved the idea of hearing more Star Wars movies and when it came out in 99.
Well, I remember being in elementary school in the 90s knowing that it was coming. Like, it's coming. It's, you know, like, and I remember before it came out, like, you know, a bunch of magazines, Fangora and all these other magazines would show all these new characters, and it's like, oh my God, this looks like the greatest movie ever. And you see it.
Okay, for the time, no Star Wars movies in 16 years.
I still liked it.
At the time, it's like, oh, cool.
Like,
yay.
I wasn't ready to be, like, mad at it yet. Like, I was like, well, you know, the later ones.
I don't think no one really starts getting mad at
it's when the second one comes out.
It's not till after the second, maybe even the third one, that people start going.
No, when the second one came out, I was like, I'm done. And the third one, I think, is actually okay. Oh wait, ranking Return of the Jedi. Where would you rank that?
My ranking on Return of the Jedi is depending on where I'd want to put Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, it's a little harder. I would rank it 3 just because.
I don't know if I'd rank it above. I don't know if I'd rank it below Revenge of the Sith. I might say maybe those two may be tied.
They're close, yeah.
Tied in the respect of the third one. Episode 3 is obviously the best of the prequels.
Mm-hmm. It has a better, and actually, I'm going to say it's got a better story than Return of the Jedi has. Story.
Right.
But it's got its own problems. Like, the acting is considerably worse.
I think the acting is a little bit better in this episode 3 than you do get 1 and 2.
Oh, I just meant compared to Return.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, even Return has worse acting than the other two. But, I mean, the acting's a little wonky. I don't know. I do like, well, we'll get to that one in a minute. I do like Revenge of the Sith, though. But Phantom Menace. Hey, let me read this opening crawl.
Go ahead.
Turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic. The taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems is in dispute. Ooh, exciting. Hoping to resolve the matter with a blockade of deadly battleships, the greedy Trade Federation has stopped all shipping to the planet of Naboo. While the Congress of the Republic endlessly debates this alarming chain of events, the Supreme Chancellor has secretly dispatched 2 Jedi Knights, the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy, to settle the conflict. Wow. Like this, like just reading the opening crawl, I am so excited to know what happens with this blockade on the Trade Federation. I want to hear more. I really want to hear more about this Congress of the Republic debating on the Trade Federation's blockade. I want to hear more about that. I hope that that's all this movie is.
Turn to your local galactic cable provider and watch Galactic C-SPAN.
So, this movie's boring. Like, it's boring.
The most exciting part of Phantom Menace, in order of best parts, is the in-fight, saber fight.
Well, the music is great for that.
Right.
What is that? The Clash of the Fates? Duel of the Fates.
Yeah. Lightsaber duel with Darth Maul and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. That was great.
Yeah.
And after that, only other best part of that is really the pod race.
The pod race is pretty cool. It doesn't age particularly well, but it was really cool when it came out.
Right.
You didn't like the Metachlorians?
You know, the Phantom Menace could have been a lot better than what it was. It's got it's got a few.
That is the understatement.
It's got a few issues with it. The biggest one, obviously, is Jar Jar, and not necessarily because you have a character of Jar Jar in the movie. It's because the way George wrote Jar Jar is the most annoying part.
Jar Jar is pretty obnoxious.
I get it. Jar Jar is kind of what 3PO and R2 was in the original. You're a little bit of your comic relief.
Yeah.
But they went too far with it.
Yeah,
they really went too far with it. If Jar Jar would have served an actual purpose, more like he did in like Attack of the Clones.
But he used the Boomba.
Well, I wish someone would have took a Boomba on him.
Just used the Boomba. Jar Jar, use the Boomba. What makes you not having a Boomba? Yeah, taking this.
So
stupid.
I don't know if George has ever admitted, or will probably never admit to it, but I think he really wrote this more towards the kids than trying to tell a story.
Yeah.
I think if he just would have told us a really good Star Wars story.
Well, let's not forget the other flip of that coin is Jake Lloyd's fantastic performance as Anakin Skywalker. Like, that kid is really, really obnoxious.
Well, my thing is, did you have to start out with him being so young in order to tell the story of Anakin to Darth Vader. I don't think you needed to.
No, you never needed to. You could have been a teenager.
I think you should have
been a teenager.
I think you should have found him at more like 12, 13 years old. Not.
He could have gone 15 and it would have been just fine.
Yeah.
Like he and Padme's relationship would have been
not so weird.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to say creepy because they're adults in the later movies, but it is weird.
Yeah. I mean, now all of us as kids have all had crush on older girls. Like, oh God, she's gorgeous. A neighbor that's 16 and you're 10 is like, oh my God. When you get to that age, weird. But it's still weird. But usually no one pursues it. But the kid seemed a little. I just think he wrote more towards trying to be more kid friendly instead of telling a good Star Wars story. And I think in the end it bit him in the ass.
Well, and like there really is no story. If you actually pay attention, there really is no protagonist. Like
Darth Maul is about the closest you get to a protagonist.
Well, he'd be an antagonist. Protagonist.
Oh yeah.
Really, the main protagonist of the story is Jar Jar Binks. Yeah. This is Jar Jar Binks' story. He's the one that goes through the character arc of falling on hard times, being banished from his Naboo underwater kingdom, going on this adventure across the stars with two Jedi Knights and
coming back,
and a kid, and coming back and being a general. This is Jar Jar's story.
Really? Yeah.
I mean, it really, like, nobody else has an interesting story in this, except, like, not even little Darth Vader has an interesting story in this one. This is all about Jar Jar Binks.
Mm-hmm. I still say Lucas tried to tell a kid story for Star Wars, and it. Now, granted, that movie made tons of money when it came out, but
of course it did.
But then again, you didn't really have the internet like it is nowadays with a lot of, oh God, it sucks, don't go. Yeah. You didn't have a lot of that like you do now. But I just think Lucas, I don't know if he didn't try hard enough or tried too hard. This movie could have been a lot better. You could reduce Jar Jar's time in half. And
there are cuts on the internet. There are unofficial cuts where they pretty much cut Jar Jar out as much as they can. But I haven't watched them because it's like, yeah, but I'm still gonna have to deal with Jake Lloyd and the Trade Federation.
And that movie's not.
And by the way, let's bring up. I'm not a super PC guy, but there is a point when it's like, okay, this is like borderline racist right here, like. Jar Jar's a total, like, blackface character. Let's be honest. The Trade Federation guys are like Fu Manchu aliens. And then you've got Watto, the greedy Jewish bug alien. It's like, okay, I mean, what are you doing, George? Like, yeah. I mean, like, his response is that he's using old character types from old movies. And that's what Star Wars is always about.
I mean, because he based the fight he wanted in Star Wars off of old World War II battles, or actual footage from the World War II too.
The problem is some of these old movies had kind of racist characters that are racist archetypes, and like there had to be some part of you where it's like, oh, these type of characters are in the past for a reason. Like right. It's not really good to like those aliens are like, oh, but what about the brocade? It's like, oh my.
Sadly enough, you really waste
and if it's a comedy, it's fine, but this wasn't a comedy.
It's Star Wars, and you really waste the talent of Liam Neeson.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, if you think about it, they really wasted his talents.
I have a theory. I think Shmi, Skywalker's mom, I think she and Qui-Gon were totally boning in that movie. Like, seriously, go back and watch that movie, and like she's like, yeah, and this is I'm glad you and Qui-Gon get along, or some stupid line. And if you look, she looks at him, and he gives her this look back, and it's like, holy crap, they just did something earlier. And then like later when he's like, well, I'm going away now, and we're taking you with us, and she's like, and he's like, but can Mom come too? And he's like, no, Watto was only gonna give you up. And it's like, why couldn't you have just taken her too? But he's like, no, I got to get out of here before this relationship gets weird. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, go back. Like, I know it's a terrible movie, but go back and watch it.
It's not even.
And look for that look. Like, it is so, like, once you see it, it's like, oh my gosh, they had a good time while he was out playing with Jar Jar and C-3PO. Like, they had a little adult situations going on there.
That's the shortest of the prequels, and it seems like the longer one.
Is it really? I thought it was the longest.
No.
133 minutes. That's still too long.
I don't have the time written down for episode 2, but episode 3 was 140 minutes.
Wow. Speaking of episode 2, that's the next one.
Attack of the Clones. Now, Attack of the Clones, we get
Opening crawl. I got to do opening crawl.
Okay.
I got to do it. Okay. There is unrest in the Galactic Senate. Several thousand solar systems have declared intentions to leave the Republic. This separatist movement, under the leadership of the mysterious Count Dooku, has made it difficult for the limited number of Jedi Knights to maintain peace and order in the galaxy. Senator Amidala, former Queen of Naboo, is returning to the Galactic Senate to vote on the critical issues of creating an army of the Republic to assist the overwhelmed Jedi. Now, I'm going to tell you that synopsis doesn't really tell me anything about what's going on.
Something I probably should have asked you before you read the synopsis for Attack of the Clones. I was of the opinion they should have killed off Darth Maul in episode 1. I mean, maybe at the end of episode 2, maybe the beginning of episode 3. Okay, Count Dooku served its purpose, but I think you still could have used Count Dooku and kept Darth Maul in there somehow.
Well, what's funny is Dooku lives on this one, but they kill him right away
in episode 3,
like within the first 5 minutes.
So why couldn't Darth Maul have served Dooku's purpose in episode 2 and not use Dooku? Because to me, that's what makes the first original trilogy so great. You've got this badass character, Darth Vader, who is the vein of the rebellion's existence. Well, why can't you have Darth Maul?
Yeah, in the old ones you had a constant villain, whereas this one, yes, you have Palpatine. Even though he's a bad guy, they don't reveal it until the third one.
I was always of the opinion, Darth Maul, if they would have kept him alive, he, chicken shit out, runs off, whatever, at the end of episode 1, so be it. He hides away for a while, whatever the case. I don't care how you write it, whatever. But to me, I think Darth Maul could have served as Count Dooku instead of trying to rally these systems to their cause, and I think it would have been...
and that's the thing. I really like Count Dooku, actually.
I mean,
terrible name.
Christopher Lee
is great.
Great. And if you think about it, I mean, these prequels have some decent actors in them, but they seem like their talents are wasted.
They're totally wasted because...
you got Liam Neeson, Samuel L. Jackson, Christopher Lee. You get some of these people in here, and with big names, Jimmy Smits playing Senator Bail Organa.
Organa.
Yeah, and it's just like... You get all these big names who want to be in a Star Wars movie, but you picked the wrong trilogy to be in.
From what it sounds like George Lucas was the type of director where if they got their lines right on the take, it's good. And that's not how you're supposed to direct.
Get some emotion out of them. Get some feelings into them.
They have to keep that's the point, is they have to keep doing more takes and keep working on it to get it right.
Right.
Getting your lines right doesn't do anything. And it makes it a boring movie.
What's your opinion with the use of Jango Fett? I mean, obviously, he served a purpose to get to be the prototype for the clones for the Army
I think
Republic.
That's awful.
Army.
I think that is awful.
But did you really need to sit there and say, "Oh, look, Boba's just a clone off of Jango"?
I think that whole thing is. I don't get me wrong. I like Jango Fett or whatever. I like that we kind of brought. I sort of like how we brought little kid Boba Fett into this, even though that's kind of stupid. But
I personally kind of think it kind of ruins a little bit of the mystique of Boba Fett. Then,
well, not only does that, but it also the idea that so the stormtroopers are clones, I you can
pretend
like that isn't the case. I
think nowadays, even by the time you hit quote A New Hope, they're no longer clones anymore. But still, I
think that's what Lucas meant for. I think most people just hate that idea so much that it's not even canon. I don't think it's going to be canon for The Force Awakens. I don't think that they're going to be clones.
No,
but I do think that's what Lucas was going for, was to make them all clones. That way, you don't have to think about the deaths of these people. They're soldiers. They think that they're working for the right side, and then here comes some rebels blowing up their ship and killing them all. It's like, well, if they're all clones, just mindless clones, it makes things easier. That's my opinion of what Lucas's thought process was on retconning that.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. This is war, and it's not all black and white.
Did you like Hayden Christensen's portrayal of an older teenage Anakin? Obviously, it's better than what Jake Lloyd did as a whiny little brat. But
Hayden Christensen is actually a good actor, but I don't think he did very well in these movies. I think that, and I don't hate him. I think the internet gives him more hate than he deserves. But I think that he was a victim of not kind of the armchair directing that Lucas did with these these movies. I think he was hurt worse than most of them. There were a few actors that Ian McGregor.
Ewan McGregor.
Ian McGregor did a really good job, but he didn't on the first one. And
he wasn't really used that much. Really, in the first one, you saw more Qui-Gon than you really saw.
Well, he kind of admitted at the first one that it's like I've heard him say that he pretty much had to like do it on his own. Like he knew like the director wasn't going to be there to make sure that the right amount of emotion or whatever is going to be put into this. So he had to do that on his own, and he really stepped up and did a really good job on these movies. I mean, Natalie Portman, great actress.
Yeah,
she's bland in these movies.
Yeah,
it's like you said, Samuel Jackson. The other one, of course, is Palpatine. What's his name?
Ian McDermott.
Ian McDermott.
Yeah, and he's the only one.
He's phenomenal in this movie.
Great thing about him, he played the Emperor when
he was young
in Return of the Jedi, and because of the time space between Return and Phantom Menace, he had become the right age to be able to play leading into that character, which was great. You had that consistency which is awesome, and he really plays that part really well.
Oh yeah, he does.
He calls his Emperor voice a gravelly voice because he said he had to, it was always hard on his voice to do, but he didn't have to do it till really the third movie.
Yeah,
which he was thankful for.
Oh, that's another special edition thing that I do like. There aren't too many on Empire Strikes Back. They keep it down to a minimum. I do like putting in Ian McDermott. That's one of those changes that works. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with the change that they did in Return of the Jedi by putting Anakin, Hayden Christensen in there. I'm not sure where I fall on that.
That doesn't work.
I don't know if I fall with that one or not.
I get why they changed it, but it's
I get it, but at the same time,
it's it was fine the way it was the first time.
Yeah, you had 3 different actors playing Vader technically in Return of the Jedi. You had David Prowse, another actor who did all the fight scenes with Luke, and then a different actor who was in the costume when they unmasked.
Oh, 4 if you count James Earl Jones. I guess the thing about adding, it's one of those things, like if it's something that it has to seem, when you make these changes, it has to seem natural.
Right.
Putting in Hayden Christensen, who if he was was probably a 5-year-old boy when that movie came out. Like, you know that as the audience. You know that that's not right. So it seems weird.
Okay, I guess.
Whereas, like, putting in Ian McDermott in Empire, it's like, oh, yeah, that seems totally fine. That seems natural. That seems like something that a studio, like 2 years later, would say, you know what, let's put him in there on the releases. That seems natural. But putting in Hayden Christensen doesn't seem natural, and you know that when you're the audience. You're like, this is not right.
I guess from one point of view it makes sense, but another one, like you said, it's weird at the same time.
You got to think about the audience reaction to this stuff, and it's like nobody's going to be like, finally Hayden Christensen should have been there all along. It's like, no, he shouldn't have, because he was like a little kid when that he was just a no-name little kid when that movie came out. Like, it's just weird.
There was a review of Attack of the Clones after it came out, and to me, then I kind of just, overlooked it. But a critic really made a good point about Padme and Anakin's relationship during that entire movie. He kind of gets pissy and he goes off and kills the same people who killed his mother. You see moments of hatred and then whatever. And yet every time she keeps going back to him and staying with him, the critic was like, at some point, wouldn't a normal person kind of pick up and go, okay, you got issues. Come find me when you don't have so many issues. It's just, the critic didn't understand why Padme would see the attraction in someone like that, but you have to force that. Obviously, you got to have someone to give birth to Luke and Leia. And at the time when the movie came out, it really kind of just glanced right over it and said,
I really didn't like, and this one grew on me. I'm not going to say grew on me, like I appreciated it more later.
It's better than Phantom Menace.
It is, but when I saw it in theaters, whereas with Phantom Menace, I think also because I was a kid when Phantom Menace came out, I was able to overlook it. When this one came out, I was a senior in high school, and I was like, no, we have Lord of the Rings and we have Spider-Man out this year. Not seeing this one again. I'm sorry, I love Star Wars, but this one sucks. I'm going to go see Lord of the Rings and Spider-Man again, because those were good movies. This one was not. And the whole Padme Anakin relationship was just that phony.
Fight with Count Dooku was okay with Anakin and Obi-Wan, but it was not. I have to say the Darth Maul fight was a lot better in Phantom Menace than what that was.
This was the first movie where they went all green screen.
Right.
With the exception of one scene. There is one scene in the movie where Anakin and Padme are back by the lakes of Naboo.
Well, because they did it outside.
Because they still had that set. And it's like, oh my gosh, what are these shadows doing here? Like, all of a sudden, it's not like this soft filtery look that the rest of the movie had. And the rest of the whole movie just comes off very phony. Like the effects come off phony. The love scene or the romance or whatever. Like I wish I could remember more of the lines, but they are. Can you come up with a line real quick from that? Like those are so bad.
Oh,
I can't think of any right now. And they're funny, like when you say them.
The only thing I come up with is when they're in.
In
Palpatine's
I hate sand. It's coarse and dry and gets everywhere. Like, if you ever watch it on Rift, you know what Rift Tracks is. So it's the Mystery Science Theater, but you just download a Rift Track and watch it with your movie. On the third one, when he gets mad at her, one of those guys yells out, "Sand lover!"
There's a scene in Chancellor Palpatine's office towards the end of episode 2 when I think Mace Windu and Yoda and some of the higher ranking Jedi are in there and they're trying to figure out what to do because Obi-Wan and Anakin are stuck on Geonosis, and Jar Jar's in that office, and there's like, who could make such a motion in the Senate? By this time, Jar Jar is now filling in for Padme in the Senate. Why would you make him anything of a politician? I have no idea. He's the one that
destroyed the Republic.
So basically, he gave the rights for Palpatine to be able to, quote, use the clones as an army.
Yeah, he gave him like what was it, some sort of emergency
power,
power,
which he never gave up, obviously. But
okay, ranking episode 1 is definitely worse. But
episode 1 is at the bottom.
This one's second to last.
Like it's number 5.
This one has like some neat moments, but it's still not a very good movie.
Right,
like, it's pretty bad.
And probably one of the best scenes is actually one with Christopher Lee as Dooku talking with Obi-Wan when he's got
really good scene.
Obi-Wan, and it's actually, if you think about it, everything that Dooku tells Obi-Wan is the literal truth. Mm-hmm. But Obi-Wan, because he knows he's, quote, changed sides to the dark side or whatever, he's not playing for the Jedi anymore, he doesn't believe him.
That is actually a really good scene in the movie. Another thing, Lord of the Rings came out the same year, and it had Christopher Lee as Saruman, which is a very similar role if you think about it to Dooku. Like it's like instead of a Jedi falling from grace and joining the dark side, it's a wizard falling from grace who's joining the villain. It's like, all right, it's the same thing.
Yes, but I'm sure his bank account didn't care.
No.
On to Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, came out in May 19th of 2005.
This one is the best of the prequels.
Yes.
Here's the opening. Actually, this one might have the best opening crawl. So here it goes. War! The Republic is crumbling under the attack of ruthless Sith Lord Count Dooku. There are heroes on both sides. Evil is everywhere. In a stunning move, the fiendish droid leader, General Grievous, has swept into the Republic capital and kidnapped Chancellor Palpatine, leader of the Galactic Senate. As the separatist droid army attempts to flee the besieged capital with their valuable hostage, 2 Jedi Knights lead a desperate mission to rescue the captive Chancellor. I always really like the war. The Republic is crumbling. I love that.
Yeah.
Although it gets kind of stupid.
When you say war, the only thing I want to do afterwards is say, what is it good for? Yeah. Definitely, Episode 3 was what I think everyone was hoping Episodes 1 and 2 would be more like.
And actually, you can skip 1 and 2, and it adds nothing to the story. That's the sad part about prequels is, like, all they are references for the old ones. It's like, why don't you just make a story? And they finally did it with the third one.
Right.
And it's a good story. I think it's a better, at least when you're talking plot-wise, it's a better story than Return of the Jedi.
Yes. Better cohesively put together in that respect.
I was surprised when I saw this one. I was like, oh, this movie's actually not bad. Like the acting's still not great, but overall it's a pretty good movie.
And the fight scene between Anakin and Obi-Wan is really good.
Yeah. Again, it's got that crappy green screen, but like by this point I'd kind of forgiven it. What do you think of General Grievous as a villain? I think he is the weirdest villain.
I didn't necessarily mind him.
Yeah.
Grievous didn't bother me in so much as more or less
he's not in enough. Or wait, excuse me. He's in the right amount of time.
Right.
Like, he's not in enough to bother you.
He serves his purpose.
Yeah.
As I've already said, this is where I think I'd rather seen Darth Maul get killed off, is where Dooku got killed off.
Yeah.
Because then I think he'd have had a more cohesive
I do think
trilogy.
It's weird how Count Dooku is killed off right at the beginning. It's like they've built up such a big villain, and it's like, nope, he's dead. Well, Grievous is just bizarre.
Now, I was a little surprised when I saw it at the theater, and, Anakin, both the lightsabers cut his head off. I was a little surprised surprised they actually showed a little bit of a head roll.
Yeah,
as
they
he
did.
followed.
Yeah,
I was a little surprised they
Is
actually
that why
did.
they got the PG-13 rating?
I don't know, but I am a little surprised they actually kind of showed that. I mean, because you could still give the impression of him doing that and showing the body slumped over without necessarily giving the head roll and kind of go, yeah, you know what he did. But I'm just kind of surprised Lucas actually went with that.
I agree. Roger. I do agree. Roger.
See,
we
that's
forgot to bring up the droids, the battle droids, how horrible they are. Roger.
They could have had something, either a different line or something else. Those battle droids were nothing more than for the kids. Not necessarily because they were battle droids, but because of the way they sounded and talked. It's like something you'd find out of an 8-year-old's closet on a battery-operated toy.
Like, I love you, George Lucas, but stay away from the new ones. Just quarantine him off somewhere.
I like the Mustafar where they held the fight. Obviously, looked really good. There was a lot of things about this worked really well.
Palpatine is amazing. I am going to bring up another riff track joke, and it is when...
Are you surprised, though, they went with showing Anakin killing young Jedis in the Jedi Temple, though? Are you surprised?
He had to do something. He had to do something evil. Killing Sand People Tusken Raiders wasn't evil enough
Sand
for
People
me.
ain't PC, man.
I hate how they call them younglings, and that line where Obi-Wan goes, was it Obi-Wan or was it Padme who goes, I think they both do it. I think they both say this line at different times. They're like, I even saw video of him killing younglings. Oh. It's like, oh, shut up.
But I always try to bring that up because when Anakin walks into the one room where you've seen him once before, you see all the little kids kind of 8, 9 years old kind of come up, Master Skywalker, what do we do? And, you see Anakin just turn on his lightsaber and then they cut.
Yeah.
You realize what he's going to do. It's kind of like, wow, he really put a little bit more went places more so than I thought George would really do.
That's true, yeah. What's funny is, though, like, I didn't think about it until just now, but, like, if you go back to the first movie where Obi-Wan says that Darth Vader wiped off the rest of the Jedi, but then on this movie, most of the Jedi were killed by clones. He just kills the freaking kids.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty weird.
That's even worse than just killing the adult Jedis themselves. It was definitely a darker tone movie than the first two, and I think that's where, I think if Lucas would have taken Episode 3 as an example and done that in the first two.
There's also something else, like during that montage where you see those clones killing all the Jedi. One of my favorite, all the male Jedi, all the guys, like, fight back and die honorably. But then there's that one girl Jedi with, like, orange skin or whatever, that one girl Jedi who, what does she do? She gets shot in the back. Like, yeah, the girl's going to get shot in the back.
And
she's not going to fight
I do like the clone troopers. They had that cross look between Episode 2 and what they look like in New Hope, which was kind of cool to see, a little bit more updated.
Going back to the first movie almost makes it seem like there may not be like an actual emperor within the Empire, or if there is, maybe he's just some old puppet character, just some old guy. Like, you don't really know that there's an emperor until the second one.
Yeah, and I think that was Lucas not knowing, because you really think the heart of the Empire is really, and I think that's the reason why Episode 4 was made that way. It was self-contained. You really think, the heart of the Empire is really Tarkin and Vader.
Tarkin and Vader, yeah.
So, I mean, I think it got expanded and bigger.
They didn't even have the idea of an emperor within this empire.
It didn't expand until he was able to do a sequel.
No.
And I think then when he realized he realized he was going to be able to do the second one, he knew that he was going to be able to do the third one. So,
according to your notes on Episode 3, every clone trooper in this film is CGI. Not a single clone costume or helmet was created. Because that is so hard, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Compared to what they're doing now with The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the reason why so many people are loving what they see on the trailer. It doesn't look so contrived.
Right. And I mean, I like Star Wars a lot better than Lord of the Rings. I read all of Lord of the Rings when I was a kid. And I do like Lord of the Rings. I think the movies are way too long. But I think that, Lord of the Rings, yes, there was CGI, but they built all these costumes. If you look into it, they built thousands of costumes that you probably don't even see on screen.
A good fantasy movie is Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, Star Wars, even the comic book movies. It's finding that balance of practical shooting with the special effects to make your story viable without it making it look corny. corny.
We forgot to bring up episode 1 was re-released in theaters in 3D.
And the only ones who have that done.
That's so weird.
Because Lucas was working on that, and then
he sold it. But his idea was to release one per year, so it would have been like 4 years before we got to see the classics. How messed up is that? Just release 2 a year. Like, how hard is that?
No one probably would have gone to see much of episode 1 and 2 anyway. 3 probably would have gotten most watch of the if anyone really wanted to go see it in 3D. Your bigger ones would have been 4, 5, and 6, and then some people were like, "Why do I want to watch it in 3D?"
Boy, that poodoo that Jar Jar stepped in, it was as if the poodoo was being flung at you. The 3D was so real.
Well, I know we've talked about this on a couple of previous podcasts of mine, but this basically brings us up to The Force Awakens.
Oh, yeah.
It opens up in later this month. We've gotten very little info on the storyline.
Which is the way it should be.
Which is the way it should be.
I want to go in cold.
You know, we've talked about the theories, my last podcast about Han, that kind of stuff. I had a question I was going to ask you. This movie is going to make money no matter what. I think just because everyone's so hyped for what they see. My question is really it's kind of a two-way question, two-part question, I guess. I don't know how you want to look at it. I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
Let's say the movie does well financially.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my first part of the question, if it's really successful critically, people love what they did with the story, they're excited about it, it's like, oh my God, this is what we should have gotten with the first 3. Lucas has come out and said that his ideas that he had written for outlines for 7, 8, 9, Disney and Kathleen Kennedy and all them decided to go a different direction, so he said that was fine. He decided, he'll just go his way, he let them go theirs, he'll just let it be because that's the reason why he sold it. He was willing to be a part of a consultant or whatever, but when they decided to go a different direction, he said, okay, I'm out, forget it. If the movie is critically successful and let's say George doesn't like it, is it in his best interest to keep his mouth shut?
Yes.
Or just come out and say, yeah, it looks really good, they did a nice job, congratulations, and move on. Now, my other part of that question would be, let's say it does well, but it's kind of not well received, kind of like Phantom Menace or Episode 2. Then does George have the right to say, haha, I told you so?
All right. First off, if it's a critical success and George doesn't like it, he needs to keep that to himself. Pretend like you love it, no matter how bad it stinks. I don't know.
No matter how bad he internally hates it himself.
Yeah, that would be his thing. And I would say, even if it's not bad, or even if it is a bad movie,
which I would, from what I've seen, be hard to that happen.
Well, it would be hard for it to be worse than episode 1.
Yeah.
So even if that's the case, he should keep that to himself. Like he should say, I do a typical press release, non-emotional lawyer talk, and just be like,
skirt the issue.
I saw the movie. I saw it. I thought J.J. Abrams did a good job of expanding my vision. I'm honored to have this grow, and
look forward to seeing what they do in the future.
Look forward to seeing the next one. Yeah, that's all he can do. He cannot badmouth this movie. Essentially,
he says he wants to see it. He wants to see it because this will be the first time he's ever gotten to see a quote Star Wars movie as a true fan, which I'm sure. I can understand why he hasn't really been able to, but I was just kind of wondering, since he didn't seem happy with the vision they decided they wanted to go, because his original idea was something still more to deal with family and the Skywalkers and all that type of relationship, which we've already really seen.
Yeah, we've beaten that dead horse. But
Disney and Kathleen Kennedy and them are wanting to bring a little nostalgia back, which I think is probably the right move considering the way the prequels went. I could understand why, if Disney's going to make more movies, they're going to put something out that they know the fans love, at least this initial one.
I think Lucas, if he wants his legacy
to stay intact,
he needs to just pretend like it's good no matter what. And that's not just Lucas. There are other. What you brought up kind of reminds me of like the video game series Final Fantasy. When the original creator of the first 11 games left, he had to leave because they made that god-awful movie, basically tanked the company, so they fired him.
Mm-hmm.
And that game, I don't want to get too much into it because it's a stupid game, but the 12th game was originally directed by kind of the sidekick guy, the guy who did the spin-off game, Final Fantasy Tactics. He was directing 12 and then mysteriously got sick halfway through. They had to kind of piece it together. It was sort of like Richard Donner Superman thing.
Superman 2 thing.
So the guy, the original creator of the series, and this is like 2006, but he tweeted, or maybe this was in 2008, I don't know. He tweeted that he started playing but didn't like it. Too bad they couldn't keep that other director on. Well, first off, Final Fantasy 12 is a pretty good game. But it kind of came off like, whoa, man, it sounds like you've got some sour grapes going on. Like, even though that other guy mysteriously left, which sucks, it probably would have been a better game if he stayed on. You got to kind of keep that to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know that your old personal investment, but you're no longer part of it. You're going to come off like a jilted ex-lover. And that's what Lucas needs to avoid doing. Well, coming off like a jilted ex-lover.
Because he's going to get asked. First public appearance he makes after that movie comes out, he's going to get asked, have you seen the movie?
And that's why he needs to be positive. Everything he says has to be at least mostly positive.
Right.
Years down the line, he can say how he feels.
10 years down the line, it's like, I hated it.
But if he wants to keep his legacy intact, everything he says right now has to be mostly positive.
Yeah.
A little nitpick here and there is fine.
I don't see this movie being anywhere close to being bad because Harrison Ford seems to be pretty picky about what roles he takes on.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure if he hadn't liked where they were going with this, he'd have like, okay, if you want me, you got to make these changes. Otherwise, I'm not doing it. Because as we've talked before,
he also did Indiana Jones 4.
but he seems more willing to want to do Indiana Jones movies than he ever has wanting to ever return to Han Solo. And I think that's what makes me wonder my theories and stuff like that. This had to be some sort of script. He's getting what he wants and he likes where they're going with the story wise in order for him to say, I'll do this.
And even though with going to Indiana Jones 4, even though it was kind of a douchey move for Spielberg to throw Lucas under the bus, that said, I 100% believe him. Well, I 90% believe him. I think Spielberg is old and weird too, and he probably had his own bad ideas. But I think for the most part, I think most of the bad stuff in Indiana Jones 4 was Lucas. It's the CGI monkeys, all that. That's total Lucas.
Indiana Jones 4 is still better than 2 of the Star Wars movies, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. Of course, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's still better than Episode 1 and 2. Yeah,
I mean, it may not be the best of the Indiana Jones.
Lucas wasn't directing it. Spielberg was directing it.
Which is surprising to find a weak Indiana Jones movie when you got Spielberg and Harrison Ford doing it. And supposedly it sounds like they're going to do a 5th one. Obviously Disney's wanting to put out a new Indiana Jones movie. They've gotten permission to be able to do so from Paramount. They've worked out a deal with them as well. Spielberg's willing to direct the 5th one, but he wants it to be Harrison Ford, and Harrison Ford is like, I'm on board. So
is he really?
So at some point you're going to have to move on from Harrison Ford.
Yeah, because he's going to die.
From Indiana Jones. Not just that, just because of age alone. I mean,
is this one going to be the psychedelic 60s?
Granted, Spielberg said as long as he's alive and he's being asked to direct Indiana Jones movie, it'll be Harrison Ford or nobody at all. But at some point, if you want this franchise to move on and continue to live, 25 years down the road, you're going to have to find somebody else to play Indiana Jones.
We're talking about Chris Pratt for a while.
I would be okay with Chris Pratt. I'd also be okay with I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but it was an A-Team movie. Played the face.
I don't know.
I'm drawing a. Anyway, I wouldn't have a problem with Chris Pratt. And to me, recast a character with someone younger. Put Indiana Jones back in the late 20s, early 30s, because I think that's where the character works best.
It does.
And just move on. I mean, if you got a good movie, you got a good script, and you got someone who can bring justice to the role, people will go see it and buy it.
What was the name of that old serial that Indiana Jones was based on?
They like the old Flash Gordon movies, and
that was Star Wars, and this one was this Buck Rogers that they were based on?
I'm not sure. It's all those B type movies.
Yeah, there's serials. There were short films for kids on Saturday matinee mornings. That's the thing. And then when you go to the 50s, it's kind of weird. It's no longer that. Now it's like a sci-fi B movie. It may not work for the character.
I mean, I was okay with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull using the Russians. Made sense.
Yeah, it does.
I don't know if the alien thing kind of really worked for him or not.
I don't think that the alien thing is the worst part of the movie. A lot of people act like that is the worst thing in the movie. I don't think. I will say the CGI alien at the end looks stupid and you shouldn't have seen it, but making the whole thing about aliens is fine. They're like, I mean,
it was
the
nice.
other movies had weird stuff too. Why not put an alien?
I mean, it was nice seeing Karen Allen back in that movie, but this is a Star Wars special, so we're getting way off topic here, and that's fine.
It's usually what happens.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let's go over these characters. What is the name of the new bad guy? Is that
Kylo Ren? Now, here's the thing, which I just remembered. You see these shots of Kylo Ren over the old melted down helmet of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Okay. This one thing has kind of been in the back of my head.
I think I know where you're going.
Okay. Luke took Vader off the second Death Star and burned his body on the fourth moon of Endor. Would be the only one who knows where that happened. So my question is, and I hope they explain this well enough, how does Kylo Ren end up helmet 30 years later, assuming that Luke would be the only one who would know what he did with Vader's body?
I'm sure that shot of him looking at the helmet is like when he sees the helmet. Now, I've got a question. Do you know anything about Kylo Ren?
I know he's supposed to be a part of the Knights of the Ren or something like that. I don't think he's supposed to be a Sith, or at least that's what they're saying. He's not supposed to be a Sith. They all seem to be very heavily like Vader worshippers almost. It's like they like what Vader and the Emperor had done and were fans and want to see their legacy continue. Kind of, yeah, something like that.
Now, here's a question. You read the books, right?
I read some of the.
So you know who Jason is? It Jason Solo?
Yes.
And doesn't he become a bad guy?
There is a whole 9-book series where Jason Solo, the son of Leia, goes to the dark side, ends up killing Mara Jade, Luke's wife. It ends up being his sister that ends up having to take him down.
What if this guy's sort of like a Jason Solo?
That's kind of what
Han and Leia's
that's
son.
Been a kind of speculation.
Yeah.
There's also speculation that John Boyega's character Finn is actually somehow related to Lando.
Why? Because there's only one black person in the entire galaxy. I was getting
and I'm also wondering if
I was joking about that one day to somebody. I was like, that's Lando's son. Like, they're the only black people in the whole galaxy.
Well, then also there's also rumors of not if Daisy Ridley's character of
see, I was thinking she'd be Luke's daughter. Oh yeah, Han's daughter. That would make more sense because they seems to be like a emotional connection
there. So I don't know where they're going with this, and
that one makes sense.
This kind of makes all this fun is because you know so little about really the plot and who all these people are really interconnected with. It kind of makes you, ooh, can't wait for the movie. And it's also kind of ironic if you think about it. You watch the Force Awakens trailer, and it's Han Solo talking about the Jedi, the Sith, they're real, all this and that. When if you watch A New Hope in the Falcon as they're traveling to Alderaan, he doesn't believe in hokey religions and all that stuff. Yeah. So it's kind of like he's come full circle with that. So that's kind of fun in a certain sense. This movie is obviously going to be the hit of the year. It'll definitely be the top movie of 2015.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's rumors it could maybe even break the #1 slot of all time. But
Titanic.
Yeah.
It could.
If there's a movie out there that has a shot at possibly doing it, it would be it. Yeah. I think Avatar is actually the new one. I think Avatar went above Titanic.
Is it really?
I think Titanic.
Well, darn you, James Cameron.
I think Titanic's #2.
Jeez, James Cameron.
But they're both James Cameron's movies anyway. Yeah. I think by the time Force Awakens is done, it'll definitely be in the top 5 movies of all time.
Oh yeah.
At least money-wise. Now, where it fits in the all-time ranking of the Star Wars is yet to be seen. This movie is obviously going to set the tone for the future Star Wars because you've got Rogue One, which should be getting close to being finished filming. It's the first, quote, standalone movie. And I know sometime early next year, they're supposed to start filming Episode 8 because next December, you're going to get Rogue One in December, like you get this Force Awakens, and then 5 months later in May, 6 months, you get Episode 8.
Yeah.
So Episode 8 goes back to the traditional May release date for Star Wars movies. Hopefully this is good because, Disney's obviously putting a lot on this one since they've already got two other movies already in the works, in different stages of production.
Well, J.J. Abrams, I think he's flawed, but if there's one thing he knows, it's Star Wars. I mean, his two Star Trek movies
been criticized
were totally
for being
Star Wars.
We're criticized for being too quote Star Wars
movies.
I don't have a problem with it.
I think the first one is a really good movie. Second one has some issues. But it's a good movie. I think the ending kind of drops the ball a little bit. But for the most part, it's a good movie.
Depends on who you talk with, though, but that's a whole other podcast.
It is certainly not the worst. Somebody ranked it as I forget who did. Some Star Trek fans
ranked it the worst movie ever.
Really? Did you guys not see Star Trek 5? Really?
Yeah,
Did you not see Star Trek?
Some of these hardcore
the motion picture, which
Trek-
is terrible.
It's like, yeah, okay, what about Star Trek 1, 3, and 5?
Yeah.
Have you seen those? Because if you
Yeah.
haven't, then you're not really...
Well, and then like most of the Next Generation movies aren't very good either.
First Contact's pretty good.
Yeah, I said most. That
Most.
one is good. The rest of them are just kind of meh.
The worst one, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, it is.
Because I go on 20 minutes about those. So thank you for joining me on this, quote,
No,
Star
thank
Wars
you.
special
The
edition.
panel.
Yes, the panel that was short one.
No, thank you. This was a really good time. Really good talk. I'm super excited for the movie.
I am too. We'll have to do this after The Force Awakens.
Sure.
So
sure.
we can nitpick it.
Yeah, it'll probably be your last one of the year, my last one of the year.
Yeah, because I plan on seeing it. I plan on seeing it between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah, same here.
So at some point that week, we'll have to sync up our calendars.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. May the Force be with you.
Indeed. Yes.
Do not go to the dark
Always.
side.
Sorry. Yeah, always. I ruined that one.
All right. As always, you can catch me on reggiestake.com, my Facebook page, SoundCloud, or on YouTube. Enjoy the Star Wars movies, Force Awakens, and we'll see you on the other side of the Death Star.